Hello, everybody. Make sure it's all recording. Okay, cool. I'm going to give everybody just a couple more minutes and then we'll get started. Like 3 more minutes so everybody has time to get in here and then we'll get going. All right. It looks like we don't have anybody else in the waiting room, so I'll go ahead and start. What I'm going to do is I'm going to screen share with you all, and I have a whole PowerPoint, and it's all stuff that's in the handbook. So don't feel like if you don't read every single word on the slide, you'll never find the information anywhere else ever again. It's all in the handbook, and I'm going to send you this slide, and then obviously we're recording this, so if anybody needs to rewatch it or go back and check any information, you can go back and do that. When I'm screen sharing, I don't think I can see the chat, but when we're done with the screen share, then I can exit out of the slideshow, and then I can look at the chat if you have questions, or you can unmute yourself and like chime in if you have a question that's like pressing at that moment. So let me figure out screen share. Okay, cool. Let me pull up our PowerPoint and I'll just kind of talk through it and we'll go from there. So this is our Kentucky Dance Academy parent orientation, and parent meaning anybody that is in charge of a kid. That doesn't mean you have to have a child. We try to use inclusive language, so I don't mean it to be uninclusive. It's for any grown-ups that are involved with the studio. The dress code basics are really, this is a big one. If you're wearing a leotard and tights, you don't need underwear. And I think a lot of people think you do just because that's like normal to feel that way. But it's not necessary, and often for our dancers, it gets a little bit distracting if they're like trying to keep their underwear under their leotard, like, so it's not showing. So just something to think about. As they develop, they might want a bra, or they might want a dance belt if they're somebody with a penis, and they might want a bra if they're somebody with breasts. Our basic rule is that that's totally fine. Just make sure that it's not super distracting from whatever you're wearing, your dancewear clothes. And then your hair just has to be out of your face. That's a really big one. It's a big one all the time, is that your hair has to be out of the way so that you can dance and not get distracted. Next one, I have a couple slides just showing different ways to do a ballet bun because everybody's hair is different. This first way is the way I recommend. Sorry, my dog's being crazy behind me. This is the way I recommend. I think it's the most secure. Those bun makers tend to like move around and kind of bump and jump around your head. So this one, it's super secure. So this is the one I would recommend. But the next one, if you do want to do the bun maker bun, that's totally fine. And then just something to think about whenever I'm talking about hairstyles. I just mean out of your face. So it doesn't matter if your hair has dreadlocks or twists or braids, or if it's curly or straight, whatever. It just has to be out of your face is all we're asking for. Youth division dress code. You can read through all this stuff. Basically, leotard and tights for our female identifying dancers, and play clothes or exercise clothes for our male identifying dancers, and then non-binary dancers can choose whatever they feel comfortable in. And then again, just hair out of your face. All the shoes, we sell all the shoes at the store, but there's also places you can buy them. There's a slide about that. You don't need to have your shoes right away when you join. You don't need to have every single type of dance shoe, because especially when we get into the beginning ballet, jazz, contemporary, and tap and acro classes, that's a lot of shoes. So don't feel like if you don't have everything right away, you're just like out of luck and you can't come to class. We want you there physically more than we want you to have every single thing you need. But in general, ballet shoes should match whatever tights you're wearing. So if you're gonna do skin tone, then skin tone ballet shoes. And if you're gonna do pink, then pink ballet shoes, and then black shoes for everything else. The next one is our pre-professional division ballet. Basically the same thing. A big one is that we don't want skirts to be attached pretty much at all. It's okay for our itty bitties. Sometimes it gets in the way if we're doing acro. So that's something to think about, but otherwise it's fine for the little bits. But as you get older, you don't want an attached skirt, because sometimes I do need to see your body better, or the other instructors need to see your body better. All of this stuff is stuff that you pretty much already know. Jazz dress code is black leotard and black bottoms, or black shirt and black bottoms, just so it's one uninterrupted line. Brittany prefers that. Miss Brittany really prefers that. And again, hair up, out of your face. Contemporary is the tricky one. For pre-professional contemporary, they're going to have days where they're allowed to dress how they want to if they're doing a combination, and Brittany allows them the opportunity to express themselves and dance the way they want to and wear what they want to wear to dance. So on those combination days, they have a little more flexibility. On training days, it's basically leotard tights or something form-fitting. And then warm-ups to make sure your bodies are ready to dance. Again, all of this is exactly this in the handbook, and you can find that on our website. So don't feel like you have to like take notes and read every single thing. For tap, basically the same. I will say for pre-professional division tap that Miss Caroline does tend to prefer the low heel tap shoes, so like the lace-up tap shoes. Rather than like the high-heeled tap shoes. So that's just something to think about. We can order those. I know I don't have a ton of adult-size tap shoes in stock, but we can order whatever she recommends. Acro, same thing. It's a little more specific about absolutely no earrings, bracelets, rings, no jewelry that's dangly or could get caught since you're doing tricks with a spot. If you have any of those dangly jewelry pieces, they'll either get caught and hurt you or get caught and break. So that's a big one. And then hair out of your face, whatever that means, because I know sometimes acro you're rolling and a bun can be uncomfortable. So as long as it's out of your face, that's fine. And then we did make a slight adjustment. A lot of our stuff still refers to this class as musical theater. We are shifting that to theater dance to be more true to what the class actually is. Since they're not doing any vocal training in the class, we decided that it makes a little bit more sense to do theater dance instead of musical theater. But this is basically the same as the jazz class requirements. So if you have like a black leotard and some black jazz pants, you're pretty much set. And then hip hop is a little more relaxed. I'm gonna suggest, this is from me, to have like tennis shoes you just wear for hip hop class that are comfortable and supportive and light, and that you're not wearing outside, so we're not bringing in any outside like dirt and grime, but also germs. So just something to think about. Is obviously not a requirement, because I know shoes are expensive and dance is expensive, but that would be my suggestion, is to have like hip hop class only tennis shoes. And then same deal with your hair out of your face. It's just a big distraction for all of our dancers. And then for our adult classes, it is pretty much up to the dancer themselves what they want to wear and what they're comfortable wearing. You do want it to be form-fitting for the most part because you want to be able to see how your body is working, and you want your instructor to be able to see how your body is working and give you feedback. But other than that, we would rather everybody be comfortable and be confident. So this is a fun little slide, ready for class or not ready for class. So you all get the point. I'm really hammering that home. This is a big one for us in the dance world and a big one for KDA. I'm going to share this with you all so you can explore these links separately. But you might want to look into it. There is a debate in the dance world, and there's a shift in the dance world about going from pink tights, which were made to mimic Caucasian skin, and moving away from that for dancers of color specifically and Black dancers. So obviously we want everybody to wear what feels best for their body and what feels best for their identity. So I fully support, and all of our teachers fully support, wearing tights that are true to your skin color. I'm going to apply that to any dancer, not just Black or dancers of color. So it's worth looking into. There are a lot of companies, especially right now, that are expanding their shoe and tights lines that are making them more inclusive. So we can stock that once we have a better idea of what people want and what our dancers are asking for. There's a huge rainbow of colors though, so I hate to order some that we're not going to use or feel like I'm pressuring anybody if they don't want to do that, because it is ultimately up to the dancer. If they feel better in pink tights, that's awesome, and we'll do it. But I do highly encourage everybody to just be aware of this discussion in the dance world and this change in the dance world. Then I had a couple families ask me, if you're new to the area, where can you buy dancewear? There's two big dancewear stores that are relatively close to where we are, Dance Biz in Lexington and Kinney Dancewear in Louisville. If you're willing to make that trip, or if you're going to those cities for something else, I would recommend both of those. Dance Biz has a really big selection of everything. I would say if you're going specifically for point shoes, I prefer Kinney. They have a better trained staff for point shoe fitting there, and they're very specific. And they work really well with dancers, specifically with point shoes. We do have a KDA store. If you all haven't been in there before, it's on the second floor. And it's the first store on your left. And we stock shoes for every class that we teach, mostly children's sizes, because our older dancers usually make their own decisions about like what brand of shoe they want to wear, and they get more particular. And then obviously we don't stock point shoes because that's a whole array of options that we just don't have the space or the time for. But we have everything. If you just need to grab a pair of tights and some tap shoes or whatever, feel free to do that. I also don't want you all to feel pressured to do that, because it was a convenience thing since we don't have a big dance studio warehouse store in Frankfurt. It was more of a convenience thing than anything. It's also not on this list, but Frankfurt School of Ballet does also have a small store. So if I didn't have something in stock or we didn't have something in stock, it is totally fine to walk down to FSB and see if they have it in stock, because they have a lot of shoes and a lot of tights too. So that's always an option. If you want to order online, if you're not comfortable going out to a store right now, or you don't want to or whatever, Discount Dance Supply is a good one, and Dancewear Solutions. Those are both good. You don't need to have a membership or anything. A lot of dance supply stores do require that, but those two you don't. And obviously you can always ask your instructor, always ask me if you have questions about what to buy or where to buy it. Classroom etiquette. I'm sorry that I blew through that so fast, but you all can reread all of that stuff that's specific to you. These are just some tenets of the studio that we really work towards having. We really want to preserve our culture and build a good culture. So this first one is being early is on time, being on time is late, and being late is unacceptable. All of our dancers know that they need to stretch and warm up and get themselves dressed and ready for class, hair up out of their face, make sure they have their leotard and tights on, have all their shoes ready. So it is important that you're giving them the time to be able to do that, especially with COVID when we have that self-reporting health station and when we have some more requirements and need more time for hand washing and sanitizing and stuff. Just be mindful of attempting to give your dancer the amount of time they're going to need to get ready for class. If you're going to be later than 15 minutes, you probably shouldn't come to class just because the dancers have to warm themselves up to be able to join the class. So that's specifically for pre-professional. So they probably won't catch up enough to get anything out of the class. Unless you told your teacher and they're fine with it. For the littles, their classes are only 30 or 45 minutes. So if you're 15 minutes late, that's, you're missing a big chunk of class. We'll talk more about makeup classes, so don't feel like if you miss classes, it's just done. Oh no, what'd I do? There we go. The studio is for dancing, not for talking, eating, running, swinging, etc. That is a rule everywhere. So just be mindful that you're not letting your dancers just like run around. Don't send them into the studio with a snack. Don't let them, if a studio is empty, don't let them like run laps around it, because we want to, one, we want to keep it clean and safe, and we want to keep it in good condition. But also, we do want to build the culture that the studio room is a shared space for exploration and for dancing and for expression, and it's not like a play space, if that makes sense. Dancers say thank you to their instructors. That's a big one for me. In all professional companies and all big schools, that is something that you always do. Classes always end with like forming a line and curtsying to your instructor or shaking their hand or whatever the instructor does. So we like to instill that in our dancers. It's good ballet manners, it's good dance manners. So they're really, really good about it, for the record. I'm super proud of them for that. And then this one is dancers follow the rules out of respect. We don't ever want them to feel like these are arbitrary rules and they're afraid that I'll get mad or their other instructors will get mad at them or they'll get in trouble. We want them to follow these rules because they understand why we have them, and they respect the studio and they respect us for doing that. So that's a big one, and so far we're doing a really good job of making that culture, and I'm really, really proud of it. But it's just a good reminder every year that we love our studio, we love each other, we respect each other, and we respect our instructors and what we do here. Perfection is the goal, but mistakes are part of the journey. I put that as part of our kind of classroom thing because I feel like a lot of dancers get a lot of fear with trying new things and messing up. So it's also a good reminder at the beginning of every year to just do a check-in, like perfection is what we're going for. We are trying to do everything as best we can and perfectly and execute everything perfectly. But if we're not making mistakes, we're not growing and we're not learning anything through it. So the studio is our safe exploration space. And so making mistakes is part of it. And that's part of the fun and the frustration and why we do it. That's part of the engagement. So perfection's the goal, but mistakes are part of the journey. Now we're going to get into some nuts and bolts kind of stuff for you grown-ups to know. Tuition policies, all of these are listed out there, all pretty self-explanatory, but I'll go through them. This first page here is just about where is your money going. One of our tenets of our business is that we have transparent business practices. So we don't charge any extra stuff if we can avoid it. We don't do like enrollment and withdrawal fees, since you all essentially do that yourself. That's not a benefit to us to charge you for it. we don't charge anything we don't have to. So your tuition is really going to a rainy day fund for if another kind of COVID wave comes, because we did have a nice cushion where we were able to provide things and still pay everybody. But it goes to improving the facility, maintaining the facility, paying your instructors what they deserve, and making sure that KDA can continue. We're not charging anything that we don't have to. At KDA, all of your instructors make the same amount. We all make $25 an hour, which is decent for this area. I would love in the next year to increase that again. And right now, all of us are paid for the hours we spend in class, but we're also paid for our time doing choreography outside of class. And we're also paid for any extended education opportunities we take. We just did a 90-minute safe sport safe, I don't remember which way it is, dyslexia, training to spot abuse in young athletes and how to work safely with young athletes. So whenever we do something like that, we get paid for that also, just so you know. And then our biggest cost, other than the tuition going to your instructors, is making sure that our facility is as safe as it can be. We have high-tech, fancy, super expensive floors that we love. In the two small studios, it's a sprung floor, so it's a built-up floor with like layers of foam and wood. In the big studio, we got an all-in-one that's safe to jump on. It's like a super thin foam marley combination. So all of those, like the big purchases and the big maintenance issues come from that. So your tuition is going to making sure our facility is safe and making sure that when we're dancing, we have the best that we can have. Monthly due dates. We are assuming an August through May season every year. And so your tuition is divided by those 10 months. So we take the total number of classes and then we divide it up. So it's the same amount every month. So even if you have spring break and you miss a class there, or there's a holiday and you miss a class, that's already been calculated. So your tuition wouldn't fluctuate month to month, because I don't know if you all are like me, but I have to make sure I know exactly what's going to come out of my account. So it's just easier to keep your tuition just divvied up by 10. So you're paying the same amount every month, even if you don't necessarily have the same number of classes every month. If anybody has any issues with that, or doesn't think that's fair for some reason, or has questions about the total number of classes, I'm happy to answer that. We automatically charge or expect your tuition on the first of each month. Almost everybody does do this online, and our ClassBug payment system just automatically charges you on the first. We can totally change that. You just have to email me so I have a good paper trail and I have proof, and if there's any errors on my part, I can look back and make sure that I knew what I was supposed to be doing. And that helps me, that helps everybody to just have proof, and I need reminders just like everybody else. We can change that really easily, we just have to know. Because the last thing I want to do is overdraw you or charge you on a day that you're not expecting it. So if you need it to be, a couple families have asked for the 15th, just on their pay schedule, and then some people need to change it every month, which is fine, just make sure I know that. In general, I prefer email for tuition and payment plans and stuff, just so I have that paper trail, and because email feels official, and I have it all stored together in the same place. Any additional fees, we try not to do any. But if your tuition is late, then there is a $25 late fee. I don't want to charge you that, so just tell me if it's going to be late so I can cancel that late charge, because I hate it. We're going to talk more about the two performances, but there will be performance fees that you can choose to pay. The Nutcracker is a fully optional one. The Wizard of Oz, our expectation, we're going to rehearse it in class, so we call that a full studio performance, but you can still opt out. And those due dates are listed there, October 24th and January 23rd. So just so for your own planning, and we're going to talk about that in more detail in a little bit. Withdrawal from classes, there's a couple steps that I'm asking for if you decide to do it. We don't do a yearly contract, so you can drop at any time, and there's no issue. You just have to tell us. Otherwise, we're going to assume that you're going to go August to May. It is easier for us and for everybody if you finish out a month and say, starting next month, my dancer is not going to participate any longer. So we can just cancel your payment. If you do have to withdraw mid-month, then we'll work out a prorated refund for you all. Basically, the steps are just notify us so we know, and then make sure you get a confirmation from me or from your other instructors as well so that we know. Weather cancellations, we didn't have any last year, I don't think, but we did have a couple the year before. Generally, we follow what the county schools are doing. Obviously, COVID's affected that, so I don't know what that looks like this year. In general, we decide if we're going to cancel classes by 1 the day of, or if there's a morning class like Saturday classes, I'll decide by 9 o'clock the night before. I'll email everybody if there is a weather cancellation. It'll also be on our social media because I don't want anybody out driving if it's bad enough for canceling class. If we do have 2 or more weather-related cancellations for a class, we'll do a makeup for everybody in that class. And usually we would do that on our spring break week since the studio is open. But, you know, I would let you know well ahead of time if we need that and if that's going to happen. That has not happened yet, so I don't expect it, but we're prepared. Makeup classes on an individual level. So these would be classes that your dancer can take to make up for a time that they missed due to whatever. If they were sick or if they were traveling or whatever. It is ultimately the responsibility of the family and the dancer to keep track of those. We have our roll books. Couldn't think of the word. Our roll books. So we know who's there and who's missed stuff, but because we have so many students in a class and so many students in the academy, it's really hard for us to be like, hey, you have one outstanding class if you want to take a makeup. It's just hard for your teachers to add that to their plate. So if you miss a class, you can definitely do a makeup class, but it's better if you're in charge of that and not us. Basically, the rule is that your makeup class, just make sure the teacher knows, and usually you go up or down a level. Down is usually better, just because you're not going to do things that you haven't ever seen before. So if you're like in level 2 and you have you missed a class and you want to do a makeup, you would take a level 1 class. In the event that you're in a class that doesn't have a makeup, like it doesn't, like special needs dance doesn't have another special needs class, there's only 1 a week, then just communicate with us and we'll recommend a class for you. Or we can also, if you're uncomfortable going into another class for whatever reason, for germs or for anxiety reasons, we can also schedule a private makeup. That's also fine. But that's pretty consistent with other studios. But if you have questions on that, just ask your teacher what they recommend you do. Performance opportunities, the fun stuff. The Nutcracker is our first one. Right now, we are assuming we will have a Nutcracker. We're hoping that it's going to be normal, but we really don't know. I am going to touch base with the Grand. They're holding that 3rd weekend in December for us, but I'm going to sign the paperwork on that and make sure that they're comfortable with that still and they don't have anything that I need to be aware of. But for now, we're going to assume that this is going to happen. Your participation fee, again, is due on October 24th. We are pretty strict on those dates because pretty much as soon as I have everybody listed, I do casting and I order costumes right away. So try to have it in by that day, or at least communicate to me like, I can't pay you until X date, but my child does want to participate. So I know to order the costumes because that's the big hurdle for this one and for our spring performances. Usually the hurdle is making sure they have a costume in time. Nutcracker is a little more expensive than our spring classes because we do have to do most of the rehearsals outside of class on Saturdays. Me and my grown-up and special needs dance would be the exception. We do those rehearsals in class, so they don't have to come on Saturdays. So their rate is $50. Youth division, which are tiny twirlers and beginning age groups, is $70 and pre-professional is $80. I'll announce everything at the same time. I think it's in the handbook and I didn't copy it here, but all of your casting and all of your rehearsal information is given to you at the same time. And that means every Saturday rehearsal is already mapped out and you'll know it. And dress rehearsal is already mapped out and you'll know it. And show days are already mapped out and you'll know it. Again, this, it might look different this year. But as of now, we're going to move forward like it's going to be normal. We're going to do the Wizard of Oz in April 2021. We don't have those dates yet. In the past, we've chosen to do it or tried to do it in this past year in April to avoid May because there's like graduations and all these school events. That doesn't mean we'll never do another month. This year we ended up in July, so you never know. The Wizard of Oz is a full studio performance. So again, that doesn't mean you absolutely have to and it's mandatory and you have to pay me and do it. It does mean that we expect you're going to. And if you choose not to, you have the understanding that some of your class time or a large chunk of your class time for at least a month or two will be devoted to rehearsals. There's nothing wrong with learning along with and just choosing not to perform for whatever reason. But I recommend everybody do it because it's super fun and usually almost everybody does. This one's a little bit cheaper just because we don't need to pay for the extra rehearsal time. That fee is due on January 23rd and for the youth division, it's $50, just like the Me and My Grown Up and Special Needs for Nutcracker. For your initial class, and then it's $30 for each additional class. So that would only pertain to like the beginning dance kids that do the beginning package, because they would perform usually a ballet, but not necessarily always, for their ballet, jazz, contemporary, and then they would also perform a separate piece for their tap and acro class. So that's paying for those costumes. Pre-professional is a little bit more, $60 for the initial or only, and $40 for each additional. Casting and all the rehearsals, everything you need to know is announced on February 1st. Rehearsal attendance policy. This is a super big one that we've struggled with a little bit in the past. 80% attendance rate is our expectation. Dancers who do not attend that 80% mark, they're just not getting the information they need to be successful. And their coworkers, their fellow dancers are also struggling because we're missing people. So if you're below that 80%, your teacher, your instructor may ask you to attend extra rehearsals or have private lessons to catch up. But really and truly, it is best to be there, to be physically in the room in the rehearsal. So just keep that in mind that it makes it harder for everybody if we don't have that 80% attendance rate. Also, if your dancer is just struggling and doesn't feel super confident, you can always ask for a private or semi-private lesson to catch up. We want everybody to feel good. If you withdraw from a performance, it's basically the same as a regular withdrawal, except that it's going to be really variable how much I can refund you. If it's like right away and I haven't ordered costumes or anything, full refund, no problem. If I've already ordered the costume, no dance wear companies let me return them. So I can refund everything but what we spent on the costume, the price of it, and then do what you will. We can keep it or you can have it. The closer we get to showtime, the harder it's going to get to rework choreography and to cope with the loss of a dancer in the piece. So the studio has to pay their choreographers and their instructors for that time they spend fixing whatever it is or rearranging whatever it is. So we might not be able to refund as much because we'll have to devote that to paying your instructor. Obviously, this doesn't apply to illnesses, hospitalizations, personal emergencies, family emergencies. Those, like, obviously, if something terrible happens, we're not going to be like, oh, well, we can't refund you. That's a totally different thing. So just make sure that you communicate that with me. So I'm able to make the best decision and find the best solution for We're moving on now to progression through the levels, just so everybody's on the same page with what that looks like for every dancer and for every level. Youth division is easy. It's pretty much just age. Every kid is different, and every dancer is different. So there may be dancers that need an extra year somewhere, but usually that is a conversation more based on what the parent feels like they need or the family feels like they need. Otherwise, when you're 1 and 2, you're with me and my grown-up, and then you're 3 to 5, you're in tiny twirlers, and then 6 and 7, you move on up to beginning dance. We can also, we're not strict, it's not like a school enrollment where you have to be X age by X date. We can fudge it a little bit. If you're almost 6, then we'll go ahead and move you up. Or if you, also this comes up a lot, if you have a dancer that's used to being with older kids often, that's okay to move them up. But we're trying to take into account physical age, cognitive development, some milestones to make sure that we're all on the right track. Pre-professional gets a little bit different. We'll start it at age 8. That's when you enter into pre-professional, or if you're about to turn 8. And then after that, the level progression is based on, do you have the skills and the concepts that you need to be able to move on to the next level. And that's something your instructors talk about at the end of each year, and we collaborate to find the right level for everybody. One of the things that I don't know that we've utilized well in the past is having our curricula. We do have curricula available all the time to everybody. It's on our website. All of us teachers just revamped and made it better, made it more understandable, made it more consistent for all of the classes. They all look a little bit different because all of your teachers develop those independently. But I think that that's a tool that we should definitely use more often. We want everybody to see exactly what you're going to learn, and it's not, it's not this big mystery. Louie, my dog's barking at me. It's not a big mystery. We want you to know what you're expected to learn, and we want you to be able to refer back and be like, oh, okay, if I want to move up to level 3, I have to be able to do these things. And that keeps us accountable as your teachers. It's not arbitrary, like you move up and you don't. But it's helpful. I think it's just helpful to have a clear expectation. There it is. Our curricula, that link, it's on our website, but there's a direct link here. We want you all to refer to that all the time, and we're going to be better about referring to it too. I'm going to make sure that we have physical copies for all the teachers in class, and we can just refer back and see what direction class needs to take. But I want that to be more available and used more. It also, we're going to talk about this more in just a minute, but I think it's going to be helpful in our Google classrooms as well. Point work is a big milestone. This is all in the handbook, and we talk about it all the time in our dance classes, specifically in our ballet classes. It is a big deal, and it is potentially dangerous. You can do some really irreparable harm to your body if you go on point too early or without being prepared enough. So there's a lot of milestones that I work with, and Miss Samantha work with the dancers to hit. There's a lot of strengthening. There's a lot of discussion. There's a lot of personal responsibility that goes into it. And all those expectations, I'll make sure the parents know what's going on, and I'll talk to the dancers individually as well. But basically, I expect them to hit a certain level in their technique and have the knowledge they need to know, and then I start giving them homework and strengthening exercises and abdominal exercises and ankle exercises to show me that they're responsible enough to do that and that they're strong enough to do that. But that's an ongoing conversation throughout all of level 3 is when that happens. So that's just something to be aware of, and I wanted to be really clear about that at the beginning. Audition requirements, this is another one. Obviously, COVID interrupted the usual everything, but as things find this new normal, the expectation is that everybody should audition for something. And when I'm saying audition, I mean try out for literally anything. It's just the idea of putting yourself out there and trying your best and seeing what comes of it. Because in the dance world, that's how you get jobs. That's how you go to different schools. That's how you get parts. So I think that's a really important part of our training. And so an audition could be trying out for a musical. It could be trying out for a summer intensive. It can be trying out for our Nutcracker. Our oldest students have to do an audition to get their Nutcracker parts on a Saturday. We'll talk about that more. But that counts as an audition. The requirement is dancers in levels 4 through 6, they have to do one audition. I don't care what it's for. I don't care what that entails, but they're going to, my hope is that they're going to put themselves out there at least one time a year, which is great. And everybody should do that. Everybody should take that leap of faith. There's ballet specific auditions, but this applies to everybody. Then summer classes and intensives. This one we are enforcing forever and always. I think everybody, it's an individual decision when you're little, if you want to dance in the summer. Sometimes family travel prevents that, or family obligations prevent that. As you get older, especially my dancers on point, or that are taking, 6, 7 classes a week, you can't take 3 months off and expect to come back and be right where you were and be able to throw your point shoes on or jump back into your Jazz 6 class and be fine. It's just not safe for your body. We do need rest periods, but taking that long of a rest period is dangerous. So anyone that does not dance over the summer is not going to perform on point in the Nutcracker. And probably will be taken off point for some classes until their strength is restored. Just that's an abundance of caution on my end. And when I'm saying summer classes to meet the point requirement, private lessons, totally fine. Free drop-in classes, totally fine. Summer intensives, great. Summer intensives at other studios, great. Dance in a different form, totally fine, I'll take it. I just want a class consistently over the summer somewhere. So that's a big one. I know that's not the most popular of my rules, but I'm a hard lady. I expect them to be safe. That's really the big deal. Private lessons. So this one probably will come up more this year as people are kind of navigating what they're comfortable with. We do have some dancers choosing to do private lessons consistently instead of joining a full class with their peers. You're never required to do that, but it is a useful tool to know that we offer and that we encourage sometimes. So with COVID, that's a different thing. If you want to consistently take private lessons as you're training, awesome, we'll work it out, we'll figure it out. Usually in non-COVID times, we're using private lessons to like gain a skill or work through a particular issue that a dancer is having. And sometimes that one-on-one time is enough to get them through whatever it is, getting that triple turn from a double, or working through some flexibility issues, or wanting to move up a level and not understanding what they need to do to get there. All of your instructors have different rates for their private lessons, so they'll determine that based on the number and how many hours and whatever. But none of that money has to go through the studio. If there is an open studio, I hope somebody's dancing in it. So don't, KDA doesn't profit from that, and your teachers never have to pay to rent the studio. All right, here's the big ticket items, COVID and KDA. Let me preface all of this by saying I don't know everything, and things are evolving. So this might be totally irrelevant in like a week, but we have a jumping off point. This is unprecedented, and I'm really proud of the way we've been doing it, and we're making decisions that we feel like are gonna allow us to prepare to serve you all better, because we want to still be hitting all of our markers as a studio. We want to provide for our dancers. We want great dance education. We want transparent business practices. We want highly trained people doing it, and we want to do it safely. So we're figuring out what that looks like. So these are just all the requirements we have and all the preparations we have. The self-reporting health check, I think everybody has seen it. You just come in and use your thermometer to check your forehead, and you check that you don't feel sick that day. Whenever possible, just limit the number of people that are coming into the studio. I'm not gonna say nobody can because we have so many youth kids, but if you can avoid big family groups, that would be great. Mask usage guidelines. Everyone entering and exiting and waiting needs a mask except for babies, really young kids, and people that have a health condition that prohibit it. So that means families and dancers walking in and out. Then in class, masks are optional for the youth division. Make the best choice for your family and for your dancer, but my personal belief is if they can tolerate a mask, it's not a bad idea, and encourage them to do so. Your instructors wear them all the time, since we're the ones projecting at the front of the class, and we could really share a lot of germs that way. And we have the opportunity to spread out well. We're set up for social distancing already with our nice big studios, but it's not a bad idea unless they're so young that they're going to touch it and mess with it a lot, because that's just upping their exposure. Masks are expected for pre-professional, and that means I anticipate, and your instructors anticipate, everybody will be masked. Again, that doesn't apply to people that have like asthma and can't. And we're doing it on the honor system. We don't need a doctor's excuse if you're not wearing one. It is at your family's discretion, but we encourage it. We hope you do. All of our studios are set up so dancers can step to the side if they need to take their mask off and breathe or get some water or whatever. It is in no one's best interest to push dancers to the point of extreme fatigue or distress. We're gonna be more mindful about reminding people to drink water and breathe and exercise safely. We're getting wall-mounted hand sanitizers in the studio so dancers can adjust their mask and sanitize. We're not going to talk about it. This is a big one. We're not going to talk about it in class. We're not mask shaming. We're not discussing who is and who isn't. And we're not teasing anybody for wearing one or not wearing one. KDA is really focused on inclusion, and that goes for masks too. We're just, obviously if a dancer is struggling with a personal issue with COVID, we're the adults that listen, but we're not going to shame anybody. And always communicate. We'll work it out. Just make sure we know what's going on. These are just some outside resources that you could browse, and some masks that are made for dancers. One second, let me handle my dog. Sorry, needy dog. This is sanitization we're doing. More hand sanitizers, more sanitizing. And we're spraying the floors in between classes now, and we're sanitizing everything every night. One second. Working from home. So the daily sanitization means like Lysol, top to bottom. And then the floor we're using rubbing alcohol. Okay, this is a big one. Google Classrooms, making dance class more accessible. All of your instructors are making Google Classrooms, and we're gonna get those links to you as soon as we can. You're gonna receive your code and join the classroom, and then we have it ready to go if and when we need it. It's just good to have that in our back pocket for if it comes up. And we'll have it active and everybody invited before we ever need it. This is just kind of discussing the differences between hybrid and distance learning and how we're defining them. hybrid classes would be utilized if we have to have smaller class sizes. We would have rotating groups, so like an A group and a B group. So A's would come in one week, B's would come in the next. That would limit our contacts and comply with whatever restrictions were put on us. Those dancers in person just go to class as usual. Obviously, do our usual health and safety stuff and just take class. The dancers that are in the group that's not in person that week would virtually attend their class via Google Meet. During the usual time, we'll keep all of that consistent, and additionally send in an assignment to get personal feedback from their instructor. So what I imagine that's going to look like is the dancers in class just take class. The dancers that are virtual observe the class and take it as they can from their home. And then the teacher will specifically say, hey, this combination we did in center, can you record yourself doing that and send it in to me so I can give you feedback? So it's not, virtual is never going to be quote unquote as good, but I think that's going to give us the personal reactions and corrections and input that we were missing before. And it's going to help hold us as the teachers and the dancers more accountable. That's a big thing I heard from our older dancers, especially. They want to be more accountable. They want accountability in class. So that would be what a hybrid class looks like. Obviously, it'll look a little bit different for everything. What works for ballet probably won't work for acro. So your teacher is going to work on a model that works for them and assignments that work for them. Distance learning would be if we all have to work from home. Classes would still be on a consistent schedule at their usual time. We'd probably switch to Google Meet since that works better with Google Classroom. And there's some benefits to that as well, using Google Meet rather than Zoom. We'll all be there, and then all the dancers will send in that assignment, whatever it is, as directed from the teacher. So it's basically what the virtual group is doing, but everybody is doing it. So that's kind of what we're talking about if we ever talk about when we go to hybrid, if we go to hybrid, if we go to distance learning. This is what we're talking about. That was pretty much the spiel that I had. Thank you for letting me ramble for so long. So let me stop my screen sharing and drop some questions or anything that you need now, and we'll do some quick questions and answers, and then after that we can just wrap it up. Oh, I talk so much that nobody has anything to say. That's good, that's great. Thanks, Angela. Thanks, Steph. Yeah, so if you do think of a question, if you do have something come up, definitely shoot me an email. Let me know what's going to work for you and what doesn't. If you have any questions that pop up into your head, shoot me an email or call me. I'm always, always, always here. You all are super great. I have missed you all so much. I'm really excited for the year to start. So anything you need, you just shoot me calls, emails, texts. You're great. Thank you all. Oh, good, the captions work. Cool. All right, I'm gonna sign off up here. Thank you all so much.